For Calgary Edgemont.
Madam Chair, I am actually quite excited that I get to have the opportunity to rise and speak to Bill 28 as a mom and a parent. You know, the Municipal Affairs Housing Statutes Amendment Act. I find it interesting that we've just heard about censorship. Because you know what time allocation is? Censorship. And I've only got now maybe 8 minutes to speak to this bill because I've been censored. My constituents have been censored right now. And I find it very interesting because last night as I was preparing for bill debate, I went through the inbox of Calgary Edgemont. I was scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling at how many constituents were emailing me because they're alarmed. And they have the right to be. My inbox is blown up with concerned citizens saying, please, Julia, or please, Madam, please me, MLA, vote against Bill 28. We don't support it. Not one in there, not one email told me to vote for this bill. Because you know what? This bill is just another example of the UCP government trying to take over control of our institutions, our communities that have always been governed locally. It is just another example of a power grab that we keep seeing over and over and over again. We saw it in the fall when we sent the teachers back to school. They're just grabbing all the power. It gives the minister, gives the minister power to restrict access to library materials, appoint an inspector, and override decisions that are made by trained staff and local boards, you know, the experts. It's not a small change. It is a fundamental shift away from community-based decision-making and toward direct political control. What Bill 28 proposes for public libraries should give every Albertan pause. But not too long because there's time allocation, so we're not going to properly debate this. But Albertans are seeing the censorship. And with this continuation, although we may not call it a book ban, but we did see a book ban this last fall in school libraries. Public libraries are also, though, trusted institutions. They are built with equitable access to information and freedom to read by locals' decision-making. And Bill 28 is undermining all of that. Public libraries exist to provide access to information and support learning, reflect the communities they serve. They're trusted institutions. One of the emails I got last night was from Megan, a constituent, and then when it says, Bill 28 is not saving the children. It is not the winner you think it is. It's censorship disguised as legislation. Libraries are my safe space, just like they are for thousands of kids and former library kids. I grew up taking rhyme time, had librarians help find materials for research papers, studied for finals, wrote all senior level thesis papers, all in the public libraries. I'm now a parent, and guess what? My parental expectation is that I'm having the conversation with my child regarding their readings. Nothing in this legislation safeguards them. I trust librarians to make the best decisions about their collections that they curate and manage. I do not trust the UCP government to do so. Respectfully, this is not the when you think it is, but kudos, you've moved the Magna Alberta movement forward. Thank you for that wonderful letter. Another mom also wrote me. I think it's great, actually, after the last little bit, that these are moms that have written me. I'm a constituent in your riding, and I am writing to express my deep fear and opposition to Bill 28, changes to the Libraries Act. This bill would be adding the following regulations, making power for the Minister of Municipal Affairs to exercise his sole discretion. She goes on to say, I am a parent and take my children to the library every week. I review what books they take out. My judgment is better than the minister's on what my kids should access from the library. Yep. I don't need him policing my decisions, making about my kids. And I completely agree with Andrea, because I know as a mom, I have loved taking my children to the library, watching their eyes go down the aisles like saucers, trying to figure out which book are they going to pick out, which book are they going to read. It's exciting. You know, we go get our weekly books. And I know, especially my colleagues, think of me as a fun mom. Like, you guys think I rock half the time. But you know what, Liz? I say no. I actually do sometimes say no to my children. There are sometimes even my wonderful daughter will want to read a book and I'll be like, yeah, no, that's not appropriate quite yet.
It's between the parents.
It's between me and my daughter. But that's because I'm their parent. I don't need a government minister coming with me on my next family trip to the library. Madam Chair, my Calgary Edgemont constituents have been clear that they want decisions about library materials to remain with the professionals, local boards, not politicians, and to trust parents. I also received a wonderful letter from Martha, another constituent who wrote me and asked me to do everything I could do to stop Bill 28. She wrote, libraries are too important to be left to the government. The provincial government does not belong in the community boards that make decisions about local libraries. Libraries are valuable, cultural, and community resources, and they must be protected. Education is far too important to leave it in the hands of, and then I'm not going to say the word because she didn't realize it was unparliamentary, but it describes a very extreme sort of government that lends itself to, say, banning books. So I thank Martha for your letter. I'll send you a note about parliamentary language down the road. So what we're saying here is, we're looking at Bill 28 and it's restricting access. It's just restricting the access to library materials. But we're also now going to be sending in library inspectors to check on the materials, the operational management, and our administration. It also doubles down on the UCP ordering school libraries to pull dozens of books off their shelves. This ministerial order contained details of what type of materials should be removed. There was a list of 200 books that they were going to be pulled off, and I would say that 200 list is now becoming probably a must-read summer reading list. I still remember sitting in my back deck, my back porch one day, escaping. Well, I've escaped with many of those banned books, but one of them was The Handmaid's Tale, and I thank Margaret Atwood for that book. It's a Canadian classic that sits proudly on one of my bookshelves. For anybody that hasn't read it, it's The Handmaid's Tale, a universe. The totalitarian Gilead regime goes further than banning those books, though. They end up burning books, along with magazines and other materials deemed immoral, to suppress information and, control the population. In this, the books are banned and destroyed, and it's creating censorship. In Gilead, the destruction of material also take a turn on banning women from reading. It also destroyed the non-approved literature, often, burning it in public displays for everybody to see. Book bans on The Handmaid's Tale to this day are often driven, though, by political, religious, and social opposition to its destroying basically women's rights. And it's unfortunate that the discussion around feminism and the extreme control over women discomforts folks. It should be concerning that what we have here now, may not be a book banning, but where is it going to go? This is how we are already violating people's rights. The Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedom enriches the right of freedom of expression, which includes the right to receive information. And our children possess the same constitutional rights as adults. We have this educational order, and the bill violates our youth charter protection rights and freedom. I'm also hearing, guess what, from the UCP MLA's constituents. A constituent from Livingston McLeod CC'd my office. And within it, she even said that she really wanted her MLA to carefully consider the perspective of all constituents that she represents. She goes on to say regarding Bill 28, I find the approach by the overreach, it's unnecessary. There is no evidence in my experience that public libraries are providing children with access to pornography. The UCP classification of certain books as sexually explicit appears to be a mischaracterization that creates unnecessary fear and misunderstanding. Rather than empowering parents, this legislation shifts decision-making authority to a government determining what materials are accessible to children. In practice, this undermines parental involvement. If parents wish to guide their children's reading choices, the most effective approach is the direct engagement, such as accompanying them to the library, having an open conversation of what they're reading. Additionally, in the era where children can access far more explicit content online, this policy does not address the broader realities families face. As our MLA, it is your responsibility to represent the diverse views of all of your constituents. And I respectfully ask that you take these perspectives into account and advocate in a way that reflects the full range of voices in your constituency. I thank Kahan for including me in your advocacy. This bill raises so many concerns, and I wish I had more time to continue to debate it, but we've been time allocated and censored. So within my censorship here, I just want to say that Albertans deserve thoughtful legislation that responds to real issues. That Albertans and my constituents need to see that instead of a rushed patchwork bill concentrated for more power in the government, that we need to start looking at the priorities of Albertans, the priorities that they are raising, and I'm going to continue to oppose this bill and speak out against all of this government's overreach.
The Honourable the Minister.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I've never heard that before. In Hansard quoted May 12th, 2026, quote, "I'm being censored right now." In Hansard. Very difficult to be censored while enjoying parliamentary privilege, while speaking close to 11 minutes rather than the 8, with another 9 remaining, of course. But I will want to substantively address some of the challenges brought up by the member from Calgary-Edgemont. First off, the challenge that this is censorship, invoking the charter right in Section 2, and talking about it gives us the right to information and to knowledge. As I've said in the past, obscenity laws and laws surrounding access to pornography for children have never been understood. I would happily take your question. However, it's committee of the whole, so you could rise afterwards. Pardon me. So through the chair. So that being said, the obscenity laws are not protected. Are protected outside of Section 2, has always been understood in our jurisprudence across the entire Western world. Is it truly the idea that somehow it's for children access to information and knowledge in libraries to have cartoon descriptions of a young man being instructed to fillet a strap-on dildo, to have graphic, cartoon, explicit descriptions and depictions of oral sex and masturbation, of sex acts between teenagers, of a number of different sex toys being used, visual representations of reproductive organs, of ejaculation happening? Is this a part of the deep breadth of knowledge for 4-year-olds to encounter in public libraries? Is this what we really think the Charter was passed in 1982, that those who were passing thought that this is really the heart of what they mean when they say freedom of conscience, of expression, and freedom of religion? Is that what Section 2 means to members opposite? My goodness, I fear for this province or this country were members opposite ever able to govern without any check and to appoint justices to our appellate courts. That is nonsensical. And this is the center of the problem for members opposite's argument. No one's buying it that this is censorship. No one out in the wider world is seeing this debate and saying, yeah, putting pornography for children in libraries behind the counter before they access it. That this is somehow some sort of giant threat, a Handmaid's Tale doomsday scenario. It's not happening, Madam Chair. And that is the heart of the challenge. I want to address one more substantive issue brought up, and this one I think is really key to make, that a parent from Calgary-Edgemont that was read into the record said, "My judgment is better than the minister's." I could not agree more. And I don't blame that parent for not understanding. That parent is not a member of this legislature, does not have the time to read the legislation or to follow every single press conference and to get updates from your caucus staff to understand what the legislation does, to get technical briefings from my department officials in the lead up to the debate. This policy, when it's finally in place in legislation regulation, empowers parents. I'd rather another parent said from outside that riding, I'd rather that we're empowering parents. Will the member from Calgary-Edgemont return to those constituents in her riding and in Calgary and tell them that this empowers parents, that any parent that wants access to any material for their children, age 5 is that parent's choice, that this does not limit in any way their access? Will the member from Calgary Edgemont return to those members that she has spoken to and clarify for the record that this is empowering? I would hope so. I would hope that that is the reasonable and honest thing to do, and I believe every member of this legislature is respected and understands the importance of the role and the fiduciary responsibility they have to the public, and particularly those constituents who contact them, to be truthful in their communication about what the policy is and isn't doing. There are reasons to dispute the policy. You can have an abstract discussion of whether or not this is a Section 2 right. You can have an abstract discussion about the role that government has in relationship to establishing municipalities with the Libraries Act. You can have concrete discussions about how will this empower or not, what will be the cost for libraries in terms of implementing it. But to just let parents think that this is somehow taking away some privilege they have and how they raise their children is categorically not the case in law being presented to this chamber and the regulations that follow. And I really hope members opposite take seriously their job of communicating with residents. I know I do when I'm frustrated, and it would be easier to take a cheap shot at another government or members opposite or some other scapegoat. I try and be fair and honest with those individuals in my communities to tell them it's more complicated than that. Here's the reality of what is and isn't happening. So I hope that members opposite take seriously the fact that this will policy, when it's fully enacted in regulation, empower parents categorically to always be the one deciding and not putting the government or a very well-trained librarian between parents and their children when it comes to accessing really graphic pornography.